That's so
They
true.
they know the trick. I mean, among the magicians, they love to see each other do
Uh-huh,
the same stuff. The rings of the rope or the classics
uh-huh,
of Miser's Dream. Oh, they love that, and they love his variation on it, or the way she
uh-huh.
presents it, but she puts herself into it. They really like that. But the
Yeah.
spouses who are not in it,
Mhm.
they're looking like the rest of us, like the rest of the public's like, how do they do it? Well, I know how they do it. My husband rehearses it 30 times a day. I'm going
Right,
crazy. He's got the no, no, and now here's somebody else. Another one's going to do the goddamn role. And then
right.
a juggler comes out, and they're like entertained, and they're so part of the response, I'm sure, to the bubble magic was from that part of the audience, but also
Right.
just among the magicians. They were
Mhm.
just, they'd never seen anything like it. And so I
Yeah.
got this huge response, and I met all these people. Again, I didn't come up through magic, so I didn't know the names. I didn't know when I met Tamariz that I should
Mhm.
be stunned that I was meeting
Yeah.
this legend, that I spent time in the company of all these name magicians. And after a while, you could see them all deferring to so and so. What? What's him? It's Goshman. That's Goshman. You don't know Goshman, you know.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm in their company. And they're all coming over to me as well because they're also interested. They'd never seen a bubble act either. Um, so I was one of two really big surprises. I mean, everybody loved Tamariz. Tamariz
Yeah.
really at a convention. He's really something at a convention. He does tricks especially for magicians
Mhm.
that um, he's designed for magic conventions. He's designed them to look like tricks that everybody already know. They think it's the miser's dream, and they know what to look for. They know what the moment when to see if they can catch
Right.
how well he masked
Be
that. They know what to look for.
burning his hand,
Um,
trying to see it, yeah.
yes, and then he's proceeding along with what looks like the miser's dream, and suddenly it's over.
Uh-huh.
He's he's done it, and then no, nobody saw anything, and it's all magicians. What? How did he never? Right, because it wasn't the miser. It looked like the miser, but it was a
Uh-huh.
different kind of trick completely, and nobody was looking in the right place when the other thing happened
Right.
because they think they know what they're supposed to be looking for.
Mhm.
He was full of that. He was really a wizard.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
amazing.
yeah, and there were these late night things in the lobby, especially
Mhm.
after I performed it Saturday. We still had Saturday night and all of Sunday before we were all leaving on Monday. So I had sit down in the lobby and late night and people talking to me, and I
Right.
was really got all of this attention. It was wonderful. And then there was another act that really kind of blew everybody away. In those days. Doug Henning,
Mhm.
the magic show on Broadway,
Yeah.
and his was sort of a it was a new way of a new character to present magic rather than the old style in tuxedos with doves and things. He was this hippie, sitting
Mhm.
in a lotus position and
Right.
lessons about the love and it was beautiful. It was a really nice thing he did. And all the new younger magicians coming up were sort of looking to go in that direction.
Mhm.
And at this convention, that had been going on for a while. At this convention, there was a young guy from Kentucky, and he did a thing on stage that stunned everybody. He was
Yeah.
dressed in a tuxedo. His makeup was like Dracula. Really. And then he did this, and then it was doves, and it was doves.
Oh,
It was
wow.
this classic magic
Mhm.
from the old style, but fresh. It didn't. It felt like
Mhm.
that. Yeah, that was Lance Burton,
Oh, of
and that
course.
was a new thing
Yeah.
to bring back the old classic,
Mhm.
classy presentation of magic.
Absolutely.
So I really I loved that. I had a good time with the
Yeah.
magicians. Then they invited me to the IBM convention.
Mhm.
They first invited me. I mean, I'm a hippie, and what is it?
Right.
Some corporation, international business
Yeah.
machine, IBM, computer
Isn't that
people.
computers? Yeah.
What is it? Salesman? I'm not
Yeah.
really sure that I'm the right act, but no, no, no. It's the International Brotherhood of Magicians.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that sounds like fun. I
Yeah.
was in New Orleans that year,
Yeah.
and I met all these other named performers, and and then Joe Stevens booked me for that, and then while he was at it, he asked me if I could come to Las Vegas for the the close-up seminar, the
Yeah.
Siegfried and Roy close-up seminar. It was a competition of magicians,
Yes.
and just I would just come to perform at the award ceremony show,
Right.
and there I met Slidini,
Oh,
and
that's
there
awesome.
I know it was just. And then I met all these legends,
Mhm.
and again, people had to explain to me. There was some old
Yeah.
guy walking across the lobby, and the younger magicians going, "Oh, look, it's like
Right.
and I said, Slidini, that's his name.
Yeah.
I didn't come up through magic, so I don't know. And you don't know, Slidini. And so
Yeah.
I did my show,
Mhm.
and again got that kind of attention. Now
Right.
I'm kind of the West Coast version of he blew everybody away in attendance, and now they're going to have him out west. And then so Slidini the next morning in the
Uh-huh.
hotel was sitting alone at a little table in the breakfast room, and he called me over to sit down with him,
Yeah.
and he started, yeah, you're gonna be big. You got something original. You're not like these bums. He's an Italian guy that's been in America for a bunch of years, and he's really expressive, and he's
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
this
yeah.
stuff. Really,
Oh,
really like it.
that's an
And
amazing impression.
and then so he at some point he's giving me these little lessons. He's giving me I mean he's really always in teacher mode with
Yeah.
young performers, and so he says he tells me I should dress better. I mean, I had my best, I wasn't a suit or anything, but hippies didn't wear suits. So, but
Right.
yeah, but yeah, you see photographs of him. He dressed like a toreador when he was
Uh-huh.
performing. So, but he's giving me advice, and he advised me about something else. And he said, the thing what I do when the thing I don't know the thing. He's talking about something, and I said, no, Tony, I've never seen you perform. I didn't come up through magic. What? You never saw it? You never saw me? You never saw me perform? Oh,
Oh.
oh. He felt so bad for him. You never saw, oh, my hands are beautiful. They're beautiful.
Oh.
You never saw, you never saw, And so he reached over. There were these little half and half capsules on the table.
Yeah.
He picked one up and he put it into his hand, and it vanished.
Oh, wow.
It was melted in front of my eyes, put fingers between me and it, and when the fingers moved, it wasn't there. And then
Uh-huh.
he showed me how his hands are empty. Both hands are empty. His hands are empty. It's not on that side. It's not on this side. They're really empty. He
Yeah.
has nothing. He doesn't have it. It was very impressive. It melted away.
Mhm.
But you know what? He's still showing me the hands. He's still and he's showing me
Yeah.
again the bottom, the top, the ebb. He's showing me,
Yeah.
and uh-huh, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
uh-huh. And now I'm thinking, Tom, the guy's in his 80s.
Uh-huh.
I'm cut him a break. He's an old man. Maybe he doesn't. And he's still showing me the hands. And about that time, he flashed it for a second. He just flashed it. Let me see it. Then he took it. He
Yeah.
didn't present it.
Right.
Flashed it, and then he took it away.
Uh-huh.
It was in his hands all of that time.
Oh, wow.
Because I thought, okay, he got rid of it. I don't know. I didn't see how he did it. But it's impressive. No,
Right.
no. It was there the whole time that he was showing me that it really wasn't, really, really wasn't there. It was there.
It's amazing.
And then when I realized that, I went, and then he smiled. He loved that little reaction from me. Yeah,
Yeah.
fuck you, old man.
Yeah.
Huh?
That's amazing. So, we were talking about IBM and sort of magic communities. About a year ago, you got involved with the Association of International Bubble Artists, and
That's
you
right.
are the president. So it's been great as far as bringing all the bubble artists across the world together. Can you talk a little bit about AOIBA and
Oh, good.
and kind of what it is and things?
Yeah, I can never remember what the actual sequence of words is because I'm always teasing about it. And
It
I always tell people, well, it's kind of a bubble union. I think it's the
Yeah.
amalgamated,
Yeah.
international, industrial. I don't. But you're right. It's
Yeah.
so there was a gathering, really a wonderful gathering of bubble performers. There were a number of gatherings called Bubble Days.
Mhm.
Sterling Johnson is a bubble performer who lives
Yeah.
in the San Francisco Bay Area,
Mhm.
and Brian Lawrence, who lives in San Jose, not far.
Yeah.
And the two of them, I was doing a series of shows at the Exploratorium, a science museum in San
Mhm.
Francisco, and they intended to go to see the shows and see me in that setting. And so there were a number of other bubble performers in the Bay Area, so they invited them to come, and
Mhm.
they called it Bubble Days, and they arranged for there to be, some mutual things they would do together. Then they arranged with the Exploratorium that the bubble performers would
Yeah.
also teach some of the things to the public, and they would have their own time together to
Right.
talk about, the mixes that they make for the big bubbles and such.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I actually didn't get to attend a lot of that because I had this series of shows. I think I was doing 4 shows a day for
Mhm.
the weekend then. But I would, break away from that and see them for a moment, and then run back to my
Yeah.
other show. And then in the evenings we would go out to dinner together, and I'd socialize. But they called that Bubble Days.
Uh-huh.
I think they had done one before that, and then they did that one. And since then they did another one in Boston, and then they did one in Copenhagen,
Mhm.
at a science center. Again, I had a bubble show, a series
Yeah.
of shows happening in Copenhagen, and now they invited all these other people, and the people at the
Yeah.
Copenhagen Experimentarium loved it, and
Yeah.
helped and provided opportunities for people to learn bubble things from them,
Yeah.
from these other bubble performers. So we had a great time, and then we planned to do one in a woman in Wales, Paola,
Mhm.
volunteered to organize a Bubble Days event, and then got Brian and Sterling to participate and really organize
Yeah.
some things. So they had this event, and it was wonderful, and suddenly the thing skyrocketed. I mean, from being
Mhm.
kind of we did a bubble festival at the Exploratorium in the early '80s, and that
Mhm.
drew some bubble performers. We did a second one, and that drew a number of other bubble performers. But now these Bubble Days were really increasing the load.
Yeah.
And in Wales, they had to cut off registration. I think at 80, I think they ended up with over 100 bubble performers,
Yeah.
which had never happened before. Um, and out of that, and the camaraderie that came with it,
Mhm.
we had I believe, world's first uh, bubble variety show,
That's
which sounds
amazing.
almost like a contradiction. All
Yeah.
of the acts and the varieties. They had a show earlier in the day, which was me. It was Tom Noddy's Bubble Magic Solo.
Mhm.
And then in the evening, the idea was they called it the All-Star Show. So they had,
Mhm.
I think 9 other bubble performers were going to do their show.
Yeah.
And they asked me to MC that one. So I didn't perform in that one, but I presented.
Yeah.
It was great. We did it just right too. We had, rather than have all the performers backstage where
Mhm.
we can't see, especially this theater, there was not even a place to peek out from the curtain. Um, I asked, why don't we arrange all the bubble performers on stage, downstage left, sitting in chairs,
Yeah.
so that not only would we be able to see it, but the audience would see us seeing it.
Yeah.
I've seen events where juggler gatherings, where if you can see the other jugglers, you'll know better when something was astounding. You
Yeah.
watch and you go, sometimes they don't get as much applause on the really difficult things as they
Mhm.
should. But if you're
Yeah.
watching the other jugglers going, oh my God, oh
Right.
yeah, then oh, that was really something. And he's still doing
Yeah.
it. He's got it balanced. Let them see us watching us.
That's a
So
fantastic idea.
it
Yeah.
was great. It's a one act would come up, and we did this thing. I had asked everybody beforehand what they planned to do, because some of the tricks, like everybody does some of the same bubble tricks,
Mhm.
and a number of them were tricks that because I was doing it for so many years before there were other bubble performers,
Right.
they're sort of thought of as the standard. It's like,
Mhm.
three ball juggling, or using a
Right.
capo on your guitar. People do those. Yeah. So, but I said, okay, well, let's make a joke about that. Um, there's one thing for sure. Everybody's going to do a bubble cube.
Uh-huh.
It's an astounding thing. Audiences love it. So in my introduction early on in the show, I told the audience, if you didn't see my show earlier today, you're going to see a wonderful array of many things with bubbles. It's surprising. It's surprising to us the kinds of things we're going to see here. It's truly a variety show.
Mhm.
But one of the things I'm sorry you won't see is a bubble cube. I did it earlier. It's a trick that's associated with me, so I'm sorry you
Yeah,
won't see that tonight. This was a setup that we
of course.
discussed beforehand. So I would introduce the act, and then I would go sit down with the other performers,
Mhm.
and we arranged that every act in the show also did the bubble cube.
I
And
love
each
that.
time it happened, I would rise up from my seat and come as though I was, hey, what's going on here? Hey.
That's
So
amazing.
we kind of addressed the fact that there's some similarities, but
Right.
the differences were wonderful to see. The different. There was Faris from Malaysia doing a very different thing. Caroline from Singapore. We had the performers from all the continents except Antarctica. Um, it was really astounding. And out of that came an impetus for let's create a bubble organization. They
Yeah.
had in the UK afterwards another event that was they also attracted people from overseas. I didn't make it to that. And they called it the Bubble Con in Newcastle. And in that one, they actually sat down and said,
Mhm.
let's make an organization. And they came up with a name for it, the AOIBA. And then they contacted me and said, Tom, would you be its president?
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know, what do I have to do? I don't know. I mean, there's no, is a job of work? What are you asking? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I think it's kind of an honorary title that, and,
Mhm.
and I said, well, I'll do it for 1 year and then pass on to somebody else. And they said, what about 3? Okay, well, I'll do it for 2 years.
Of course.
But yes, now it turned out what nobody saw coming was that COVID-19 was going to keep us from doing one of the primary jobs of this organization was going to be organizing the next and the next
Of
and the
course.
next bubble gatherings of these
Yeah.
sorts, which now can't happen except on Zoom. So we have these Zoom meetings together, and younger performers are learning from older performers and sharing ideas and tricks and showing each other the latest video and the thing they're working on that's not ready yet, but it's looking good. And so we have this camaraderie among bubble performers that I quite enjoy. There's not in show business. It's always tricky. How much of it is competition,
Mhm.
which for me was really it's I really don't respond well to competition. I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't want to be better, and I certainly don't want to be worse
Right. Right.
than any. I mean, I'm a guy too. I don't want to lose a competition. People
Yeah.
used to tell me that I should call the Guinness people
Mhm.
in the early days. People say you should call Guinness. You make the biggest bubble, the most bubbles inside of a bubble, the longest caterpillar bubble, the you
Mhm.
know the. And I said, you know what? I'm I'm better than the most. I'm the
Yeah.
only.
Yeah.
Why why
So
should I? I mean, if I make a Guinness record, I'm more or less challenging other people to learn
mhm.
my act and beat me. I don't
Yeah.
want to lose anything.
Yeah.
So you can't help it. In your market, as it were,
Of
some of
course.
the performers um, are they're getting more gigs, better gigs than the people who are doing birthday clown.
Right.
Because they've
Yeah.
added bubble shows and the kids love it, and so somebody else in their market says,
Right.
"Oh, I'll learn her stuff and I'll do well,
Right.
what is she doing?" And so there's always going to be a level of competition
Mhm.
in it
I
now that
it's
there's more
really
than one.
become uh it's really become like the hottest trend right now. And a lot of people are jumping on it. A lot of like you said, clowns and magicians.
Yeah,
Um, but
yeah,
do
and
you think
I don't
that
think it's
that Guinness World Book records are important as entertainers? Do you think your
well, I
show
mean,
and how
if
what
you
you
want
create,
publicity,
right?
I mean, it's show business. You got to show you got to get some attention.
Right.
Um, for me, it comes with that competition idea.
Mhm.
The same
Yeah,
thing with America's Got Talent,
of
which
course.
I've always they've called me many times, and I've
Yeah.
always said no, thank you. Um, and then hung up and said less polite things about them to people in the room with me, because I
Yeah.
really don't like the whole idea of, especially that. I mean, it's a variety show. You're going to pit
Mhm.
a singer against a magician,
Yeah.
against a balancing act, against an acrobat. And the judge is who? Are they experts at acrobatics? Do they know what they just watched? Did they Are they jugglers?
Mhm.
Are they singers? Well, it turns out some of them are. And it turns out that actually singers often win the top prize.
Yeah.
It's not surprising. The whole idea of entertainment as competition doesn't appeal to me at all, but
Mhm.
it's show business. If you can
Right.
get some attention, my friend Sam,
The
a
Bubble
magician in
Man.
London,
Yeah.
Sam the Bubble Man in
He's
London.
great. He's fantastic.
Well, Sam, he knew I was working in Germany. He knew there was the bubble guy was working in Germany, so he came there to spend some time with me in Berlin.
Uh-huh.
He wanted to show me what he could do. He was mostly kind of making bubble blowing devices and playing with them at festivals and things like that. And he had some tricks he could do, but he was sort of, a few people have done that kind of, come see the
Mhm.
original. And so we became good friends, and I hung out with him in London.
Yeah.
And then somebody called me to try and break the Guinness Book of World Records for putting the most people inside of a bubble.
Yeah.
And I told them, I'm not. This was some agent in the UK, and I said, I'm not for that. I don't care for it. Nah. And they said, well, you don't have to break the record. It's just the attempt. We'll use that as publicity to get people come out to the amusement park where we're going to feature
Yeah.
this. Hey, wait, I'm not saying no because I couldn't do it. What are you saying?
Yeah.
But really, I'm not interested in being a
Yeah.
competitor.
Yeah.
The people who already had the record, and then the people who will
Right.
then break the record afterwards. When people ask me, who's the best, you or so and so, I say, yeah, that's like saying, was Larry or Mo the smart stooge? What
Of
are you
course.
talking about? Oh, you're from Philly, so you think Larry, I'm sure. Um, uh, so it's not brain surgery. There are different kinds and there are different bubble
Right.
performers. So I
Absolutely.
just turned it down, and then I told them, there's a guy in the UK that does bubbles. Maybe he would be interested. So I put them in touch with Sam,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
Sam asked me. I was in Berlin, but going through London on my way home. So I stopped off and spent a few days with Sam while he was working on the record, and the two of us in his living room trying to get a mix and make a
Yeah.
thing happen that would. Um, and sure enough, he did. He broke the world record, which was
Yeah.
Fagnan at that time, and that helped to launch him. He got a lot of gigs out of getting
Yeah.
his name out there, associated with saying Guinness.
Mhm.
So if I was, starting out as a street performer, in my day, the thing was, I wouldn't do national, I wouldn't do television. It
Mhm.
just, I was producing. It was this counterculture group of performers along America's West Coast
Yeah.
who saw each other as similar in some way. We all did different acts,
Mhm.
but we noticed that this particular group were all doing non-sexist, non-racist humor,
Yeah.
which was a brand new thing.
Mhm.
Nobody had ever had the 70s behind them before, and the women's movement hadn't impressed a number of street performers. And the interesting thing to me was, even those who didn't really have what was being referred to then as a consciousness raising on the
Yeah.
topic of sexism. Um,
Mhm.
Nonetheless, if we were street performers, we invariably ended up on college campuses a lot, and that's where the women's movement was being birthed and being nurtured. Um, it was a wonderful thing that happened in those. I don't know, it's kind of gone away, but when someone said or did something that was regarded as sexist
Yeah.
by feminists, they had this response. It was kind of low key, but it was just
I love
it's
that.
just this little hiss. In a theater, it It really, it wasn't a boo exactly, but it was a people turned their heads and then reheard what they just. It was just so sexism was so standard in comedy
Hmm.
that you stopped hearing, you stopped noticing. Well, you never noticed it, so it wasn't
Right.
even stopped. You never had it. You never had that consciousness. But when
Right.
and people suddenly heard what he had just said, and on college campuses, it was everywhere. People just so street performers on college campuses eventually, when he pulled the bra out afterwards
Ugh,
because
I
she's
hate that
one of those
trick.
with that wears bros. It
Ugh,
had
magicians
to
are
turn to
still doing that one. Ugh.
yeah, and it's a standard trick. But with some hissing,
Yeah.
eventually performers who again did not have their own consciousness raising, they didn't go through their material and take out the sexist stuff. Some did. But even the ones that didn't eventually left out that joke. So now
Right.
they told some joke, and now she's not a woman driver. The joke works without the woman part.
Right.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
But they just dropped, and so a lot of people who were paying attention, not because they wanted to help the society become conscious but because they wanted their audience not to get distracted by this
Yeah.
other thing, they dropped that joke from their whole routine. The audience was creating non-sexist humor in vaudeville. In vaudeville, audiences were so demonstrative
Hmm.
that performers learned what worked for them and what didn't work for them, and they shaped their act around that because they got immediate feedback. The people writing for sitcoms on TV where they have canned laughter, they're learning that dad walks in and says, "Hey everybody, I'm finally home," and a
Uh-huh.
studio audience apparently laughs because that's nobody's ever laughed at that except
Right.
a canned studio audience. Even if you had a live studio audience, they would not, unless it was a guy waving a sign shining.
Yeah.
So they weren't learning anything. But on the streets,
Right.
they didn't even come to see you. You just got to hold them there. You learned from the audience. And so we developed this thing called the New Vaudeville. And one of its criteria, at least along the West Coast, was this non-sexist, non-racist humor.
Yeah.
And so we had developed a kind of a partnership with that. And when I don't know, I didn't care for what TV does to a
Mhm.
lot of variety entertainment. My friends, the Flying Karamazov brothers, if you ever go to one of their live shows, it's just marvelous. It's magical.
Yeah.
Yes, the tricks are wonderful and the jokes and the pace of what's going, but they can use the room and they can really make it's, and you put them on television. First of all, they're small, like we are here.
Yeah.
We're only that big. And it just steals a lot of the magic. So I was organizing what I call new vaudeville shows. I called it
Mhm.
entertainment for a post-television generation, and that was at a time when there was only television. So
Right.
and I just wouldn't do TV. And a
Right.
friend of mine, Avner the eccentric, brilliant clown, and Avner
Mhm.
said, "Yeah, Tom, look, you've invented this new thing. Nobody's ever done this before, um, and you won't do TV." But there are other people watching, and some of them are going to learn how to do your tricks. And one of them is going to go on TV. He's
Mhm.
going to be on the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
And when he is, he's going to become the bubble guy. And
Yeah.
you're going to be doing his act for the rest of your life.
Ugh, yeah.
As soon as he said it, I went, of course. I mean, that was truth. I could hear it, the ring that truth has. You know, so okay, so
Yeah.
I should go on TV. I think as an artistic medium, it's
Mhm.
crap. But there's no question, as an advertising medium,
Mhm.
it's the best there's ever been invented. It just really will change everything. So I should go on TV. I guess I should try and go on the Tonight Show because
Mhm.
everybody wants to be on the Tonight Show.
Right.
And if I can't, then there was this other primetime show that was kind of one of the first of these kind of reality-based shows called That's Incredible in those days.
Yeah.
It was prime time and 40 million people watched.
Mhm.
And so I'll try the Tonight Show. And if I can't get that, because I don't know what you have to do. I mean, I'm really on the streets. I'm doing
Right.
street shows. I'm organizing theater shows and gathering street performers into variety shows, new vaudeville. it doesn't really, it's not making money for anybody yet, but it's really where my passion was. But I should go on TV. That would help me gather a crowd for those shows anyway.
Yeah.
And then I didn't do anything because I don't know.
Right.
It was easier not to. And then we had a flood here in Santa Cruz, and then I was doing benefit things here, and then I got a call. I had played the Tannins thing, and
Right.
somebody had called a magician, somebody from That's Incredible.
Uh-huh.
I called a magician and said, "Is there anything incredible going on in the magic world?"
Yeah.
And among the things he suggested was, there was this guy, nobody knows who he is, what it's about. His name is Tom Noddy. He calls it bubble magic. He lives in Santa Cruz, California. That's all they knew.
Yeah.
So That's Incredible called Santa Cruz information. It was before the internet. So you had to get on the phone and talk to an operator and say, "Do you have a number in Santa Cruz for Tom Noddy?" And she said, "No." He said, "Okay, do you have a number for Bubble Magic?" And she said, "No." He said, "Do you have a number for Bubble Show?" And she said, "No." He said, do you have a number for Bubble anything?" And she said, "Yes, there's a Bubble Cafe on Pacific Avenue."
Mhm.
And actually, yeah, the Bubble Cafe, it was kind of a diner
Yeah.
downtown. It was kind of, and I'm like a street character in Santa Cruz. People kind of know me. I'm the bubble guy.
Yeah.
And I know that it's funny if you went for breakfast into the Bubble Cafe and the bubble guy was sitting there having his
Right.
breakfast. I'm becoming like a semi-regular at the Bubble Cafe.
Uh-huh.
Out of how if I had posters, if I was doing a show in town, I'd make sure it got put up at the Bubble Cafe. They
Right.
know me. So the guy wisely said, "Yeah, give me the number for the Bubble Cafe." So he calls the Bubble Cafe and he gets the owner, and Lupe Chavez.
Mhm.
And Lupe says, "Yeah, no, I know the guy. No, I watched that show, man. Yeah, I know. Tom Noddy, yeah. Yeah, I'll give him the message, or you have him call you. Okay, what's the number?" Yeah. So next time he sees me walking by on the streets, Tom, come here, get him this thing. Call this guy. They want to put you on TV, man. I watched that show. Come on.
Mhm.
Oh shit. Yeah. Oh well, no, that was the one. But I wanted to try and get the Tonight Show first,
Right.
But bird in the hand. What do you do? National
Right.
television, 40 million people. So I called him up and they, oh, great. The guy said it was great. Listen, I want to meet with you. Can I come up? I'll meet you at your house.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm living in my van. I have this. I can't let them see me living in my van. They'll offer me no money at all.
Right.
So instead, I said, "Hey, listen, why don't we meet at the Bubble Cafe?" He said, "Oh, that's funny. Okay, yeah, we'll meet at the Bubble Cafe. Okay, such and such time. Okay." So we so we get together, and he's very LA. He's very Burbank,
Mhm.
where the studios are, and he's really showbiz, and it's really TV that thing. It's got its own
Yeah.
language and genre, and he's a nice guy. He's and the way he's kind of explaining it to me, the way things work for That's Incredible, is that he's sort of the scout, and he found me, so I become like his,
Mhm.
and he's gonna like pitch me to the meetings and the thing, and try and get me the spot, and he's my guy. He's on my side in the negotiations with this company.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Sure, you are. Sure, you're. Sure.
Yeah.
The company kind of, they have guys, and when they come to me, they're going to represent my interests, not that of the people who are hiring me.
Right.
Whatever. Okay, sure. Let's say that, for example. So we're having this conversation, and he's got these ideas. We're thinking about doing this. Maybe we do something in the studio. Maybe we also show you here in Santa Cruz. And I'm okay with it. He's got ideas. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we can do
Yeah.
this. And then he's kind of finished.
Mhm.
And I said, so what about? Are you the one I talked to about the money, or is that somebody else? Oh yeah. Oh, Tom. Oh yeah. No, I'm sorry. I think you misunderstood. We don't pay. You do it for the exposure.
Oh
And
boy.
I said, you know you can die from exposure, right? And he said, "Oh no, that's funny. Good luck." But no, the thing is, because if a lot of people see, I know what it means, man. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Um, you know what? I am perfect for that show.
Mhm.
And now, right, he's on my side. He's my guy, right? So now I decide I'm going to confide in him.
Yeah.
He's my guy. So I said, you know what? They're going to pay. In fact, they're going to pay a lot.
Yeah.
He said, well, I said, no, I'm perfect. They're going to pay a lot. He said, well, what'd you have in mind, Tom? Okay, now that's a good question because I have no idea. I if I'm on the streets, if somebody put $5 in my hat, I think that's a lot.
Yeah.
I think I should get more than that though. And I read a thing in the newspaper or a magazine or something that said that Robert De Niro got $43 million for his last movie. And so maybe I'm not going to get that much, but it's somewhere in between those two, is what I figure. So,
Yeah.
and all I have to do is find. So all the time leading up to it, I'm thinking, I tried to call some people, performer friends, but nobody's got any idea who pay.
Uh-huh.
I don't have a connection to showbiz. I don't have an agent who knows the levels and is going to find me something. So I think, okay, here's what I do know. I don't know enough to negotiate. I'm not going to be able to name a number and then they name a number and then we try and find it. I can't horse trade on this. I'm not going to do well at this. They're going to swamp me. So my plan is I'm going to name a number and then I'm not going to budge.
Mhm.
There's no negotiating. That's my number. That's my price. And how much do I want? I want a lot because I think I'm really good for that kind of show. I think they should pay me a lot. How much is a lot? I don't know. So now I'm racking my brain. Okay, what's a lot, Tom? What's a lot? That's a lot. Thousands? No, yeah, thousands. I don't know. And eventually I realized I just don't have the information. I can't come up. Okay, Tom, forget about them. Forget about all that. What is a lot? What's a lot of money in your life? I've been on the streets for years. I've been hitchhiking around, living without a home, crashing at your house and crashing at the next person's house. And I did borrow money to go to college. I
Mhm.
borrowed $2,000, and now every once in a while, I'm on the road. It's hard for them to find me, but every once in a while, a letter catches up with me that the banks who guaranteed the loan, the federal, I don't know what
Mm.
is a federal and a state, they threaten my they threaten my credit rating. You guys, I don't have any credit rating. I'm living in my van.
Right.
Nobody's loaning me money. You can't threaten my credit. Well, we're going to tax your pay. I don't have pay. I do
Yeah.
shows on the streets. People put money in my hat. I don't make enough that I even have to report it. You
Right.
can't. I mean, I'll tell you the truth. I told the guys from the college loans, if I ever make any money, it's not my goal. So chances are I'm never going to make any money. But if I do, I think it's legit. You loaned me
Uh-huh.
$2,000. I think I ought to pay you back at least the $2,000. I don't know about all this. Now their numbers have gotten to crazy
Right.
stratosphere. I don't know about all that, but it's legit. If I ever have any money, I'll try and share it with you.
Right.
Otherwise, you might just have to write me off. I mean, you invested in a guy who was actually not college material. What can I tell you? Just write it off.
Yeah.
Um, so some of them would laugh and some of them would threaten, and then, but now it's in the context of this conversation with this guy I haven't yet seen. It is prior to the meeting with this guy at the Bubble
Right.
Cafe. I'm thinking, Tom, you got to come up with a number. What's your number? I want a lot. What's a lot? You know what? That $2,000 that I borrowed that they want me to pay back. I've always thought that's never gonna happen. Yeah, that's a lot of money. That's what I'm looking for. That's my number. $2,000. That's what I
Uh-huh.
want. So when the
Yeah.
time comes, I'll have this conversation and I'll tell them I want $2,000. So
Yeah.
now I'm with the guy and he said, well, what did you have in mind, Tom? And I said, $2,000. He said, oh, Tom, and I'm going, yeah, no, that's it. He said, well, maybe. I said, no, that's the number. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't get, yeah. And I'm really not budging. And eventually he said, okay, look, you know, if you want, I could call it in. But I don't think the guy said, that's a good idea. Why don't you call it in? Okay. They didn't have cell phones, and we had to go out on the
Right.
sidewalk where they had a payphone. And he put and he called he called and he's got some guy and he's talking to some guy, and then eventually he hands the phone to me.
Yeah.
This guy, you know what? Turns out this guy is also on my side. this, this is also what a company. They've got people working from my side against the company. So this guy is going, Tom, Tom, Tom. And I'm saying, no, 2000, that's the number. That's the number. And eventually he said, well, you know what? I could take it to the meeting, but I don't think that. I said, that's a good idea. Why don't you take it to the meeting? Take it to the meeting. And I literally said to them, I said, you know, this is really good because you understand this is my first contract. I'm negotiating.
Huh.
So I'm going to take some notes. So apparently, the first thing you want to do is you want to call it in. I'm going to write that down. And then you, what did you say? Take it. You can take it to the meeting. I'm going to write. That's a good thing. I'm going to keep that for future stuff. You call it in, and why don't you guys take it to the meeting and get back to me on that?
That's great.
So like a couple of days later, they get a hold of me. I have a friend who has a phone. You know, I don't have. And they get a hold of me, and they said, "Okay, what? Okay, $2,000. We're going to pay you $2,000." Oh, all right. And then, okay, but here's the thing, Tom. Your fee is going to be union minimum. Oh, union minimum, which at that time was $257, $255. That's your fee. But don't worry, you're gonna get the $2,000. But all the rest, we're gonna pay. That's expenses.
Oh,
It's good for your taxes, good for our taxes.
yeah.
Well, I don't have any taxes. It's the only money I'm making all year, you know.
Yeah.
but I mean, why not? I mean, I still get the $2,000, right? Yeah, I still get the $2,000. And I'm thinking, you know, Tom, you're doing really good at this. They're saying yes to everything else. And I don't know though. How could because I don't understand it. I could get beat on this point. And then I think, you know what, Tom, it's your first contract. You should probably get beat a little bit. Come on.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I agreed. $2,000, and I made them change a number of things in the contract. You can't re-show it. You know, you can't take my act out of the body of the show and sell it throughout the world. I made all these changes. They agreed to everything, but they would pay me as a $257 fee, and all the rest would be as expenses.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And you know what it is, Meadow? It's residuals. When they sell this all over the world, it's been on TV in Yemen, it's been on TV in Oman, it's been on TV all over the world.
Absolutely.
And when they rebroadcast it, I always get a percentage of my fee.
I can't tell you how many times when I perform and people go, have you heard of this? There was a guy in the 80s, Tom Noddy. I'm like, yeah, I've heard of him.
Well, that was it. So that's incredible. Did it, and I have to say, it was great at prime time. They actually had me on a second time. We shot a lot of footage, and I was in Scotland doing the Paul Daniels show, and then traveling around when. And actually, my van had broken down in the middle of the country. My friend, the sword swallower, was driving my van out west when I flew to Europe. And then it broke down and it needed a new engine. It had all my stuff in it. And they called me and they called my mom. And my mom said, okay, you got two messages. Your van is broken. It needs a new engine. It's in Nebraska. And That's Incredible called. And they want to do a second segment out of the same footage they already have, and they need your permission. So I called them and I said, sure, if you did a second segment, you'd pay me again, right? And they said, well, if that's what's necessary to get your permission. I said, sure it is. Listen, you send the money to my mom. My mom will send some to the people in Nebraska. They'll put a new engine. So that one all tied up. And it just, so that one worked pretty well for me. That's incredible. But I have to
Uh-huh.
say, I never got a single gig. I was on
Oh,
40 million
really?
people watch that show. It
Wow.
was national. Nobody ever.
Yeah. Hmm.
And then I got the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
They hadn't seen That's Incredible. I was under an exclusive with them. They kept it in the can for a long time. But the Tonight Show wanted me, actually, before this thing had even aired. Um, they also found out from magicians or something about me.
Hmm.
But I had to turn them down because I had agreed to an exclusive.
Right.
Uh, and then as soon as the exclusive was over, I called them up and they said, okay, 2 weeks from tonight. And I did that. And then my life changed. Then people were calling. They wanted
Yeah.
me in Europe. They wanted me on Vegas. They wanted the agents. This guy wants to be my agent. This guy wants to be my manager. This guy wants to manage my agents. This guy. So, and everything changed from the Tonight Show. From That's Incredible. Many years later, I was on a college campus here in Santa Cruz, and starting to do a college night entertainment thing. And I said, "Bubble inside a bubble, smoke with." And some girl in the front said, "Were you ever on That's Incredible?"
Oh,
Then I realized that's who was watching that show. They were kids.
yeah.
Now they're college kids, but at the time they were little kids. That's why I'm not getting any gigs. They don't book acts.
Oh, right. Yeah. Absolutely.
But once the Tonight Show, which by the way pays next to nothing, they pay union scale to
Yeah.
everybody. The third time I was on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson,
Hmm.
it was me and Bob Hope and Barbara Mandrell, and I got the most money. but no, we all got union minimum.
Yeah.
It's just that union minimum is a little bit higher for what they call specialty acts,
Oh,
on
of
the
course.
assumption that we write our own material
Yeah.
through the union.
Of
So I
course.
had to join SAG, I had to join AFTRA.
Yeah.
Now they United, but um, and so I teased that I got more money than Bob Hope when we did the same show. But everybody was always joy. But they won't pay anything but those shows,
Right.
and that's where exposure. I mean, a lot of times performers get a little bit too tight about
Yeah.
their copyright and their concern and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, but sometimes it's real. Sometimes
Yeah.
you really have to. It's going to cost you. I know somebody's going to copy your stuff if they see it. You got to get your name out there. If they want you on America's Got Talent, I hate that show. I hate the whole competition. I hate the whole business.
Yeah.
But you got to get your name. Guinness, you're going to set a Guinness Book of World Record for the most, the littlest, the biggest. If it'll help get your name out there, if you're going to use
Right.
that, Steve Langley does it.
Yeah.
A number of performers who have used that as a platform to getting booked by other things. You got to have something.
Right. Yeah.
I had the Tonight Show.
So,
So,
on that note, what is your advice for new aspiring bubble performers?
yeah. So that thing that we were
Yeah.
just talking about, where you don't get too protective. Don't. I have a friend who's very good with bubbles. Has some unique things he does,
Yeah.
and he just won't show it. He won't join the AYB.
Yeah.
He's afraid that people will copy his stuff, and
Yeah.
they will. He's right. I can't tell him. Well, nobody's gonna. Of course they will.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, he's not getting any work at all. Nobody knows about him.
Yeah.
But beautiful what he does. So you gotta spend some of that to
Mhm.
get yourself out there. Um, the first time I didn't know I was getting older, but I was at another magic convention, I
Uh-huh.
think in Texas or something, and some local TV channel was interviewing a number of
Yeah.
people in the backstage, and they came to me and asked, "Do you have any advice for younger performers?" I suddenly realized that I'm an older before. Oh,
You're not old. You're
no,
vintage.
and I wasn't. Yeah, now now I'm definitely old. But at the time, it hadn't occurred to me yet that I was.
Mhm.
Um, and so I actually what I told them was, okay, before you when you're getting ready to go out on that stage, when you're backstage, you're getting ready and just center yourself, and whatever you do, don't leave any cash backstage. That's the
That's
that
fantastic.
was my advice then. But
I love it.
but for people doing the bubbles, I wrote a how-to bubble book.
Uh-huh.
It's out of print, but people can sometimes find it. I made a booklet that teaches people some of the step-by-step things, how they can learn how to do the tricks. But the people who've gotten the most and the best answers from me are the ones to whom I said, just blow a bubble. Just really just that thing that I did for the longest time with no intent of creating an act. That's a disadvantage, I think. People after me,
Yeah.
it's a magician, it's a juggler, it's somebody who's going to try to create an act, and their intent is to learn the trick.
Mhm.
And they end up learning the path to the trick, sometimes with step-by-step directions from me.
Yeah.
Here is the way that you can learn how to do this thing.
Mhm.
There's a disadvantage to that. I spent so much time, because I didn't know any tricks, just blowing a big bubble and holding it, blowing a big bubble, holding it until it popped. Longest time, looking at the colors, I'm being astounded at the beauty. In that effort to just do that, just blow a big bubble and hold it for its full life, if you call this a
Yeah.
life, that I developed all these skills. When the bubbles started to slip, I got good at
Uh-huh.
catching them and lifting them back up in
Right.
front of them. If you go quickly, it's not going to come with you. They're slippery. They don't weigh like anything like
Mhm.
what you think they. If I were to toss my keys to you right
Right.
now, you would bring your hand from underneath. You'd come up and you'd catch the keys. That's how we catch things.
Right.
It's your instinct. You're already your body wants to work like that. If you try to catch a big bubble from underneath, it's going to spread out and pop on your dry hand.
Mhm.
They're big bubbles. If you do it from underneath, you need to catch it from above. So the wand, and you catch it from above. That's not a simple thing either. You might have to follow it down for a little bit so its momentum doesn't pull it off this wet
Yeah.
wand. It's slippery. It's
Uh-huh.
not good. But until you get control of it, and then again, you can't come quickly. Bring
Yep.
its weight back up. There are some, but all those things I developed in the effort just to look at the bubble.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful magician in Europe, Finjan, who does a lot of things. Magicians sometimes use threads, and
Uh-huh.
he is like the master at threads. And when
Yes.
he saw me do bubbles for the first time, he said, "You are with bubbles what I am with threads." Um, in that, he told me he doesn't practice the trick that involves the threads nearly, not that much. He
Yep.
practices the threads
Mhm.
always. He makes his
Yeah.
own threads. He said he's always breaking them. He's
Mhm.
intentionally stretching them, pulling them, and letting them break
See their
so that
limit.
he knows where they break. When they break, he told me most magicians with thread, they're afraid of threads. They don't know when
Yeah.
they're going to break. And so they'll go this far and then they stop. He said, I go this far. He said, but never that much more. That breaks them. He knows what breaks
Yeah.
them. So he pushes the whole trick much further than anybody else does.
Mhm.
And he saw that I knew the bubbles. He had tried and tried and tried to bring bubbles into his show, and finally determined that it cannot be done. You can't trust soap bubbles. Nobody knows when they'll break. He tried to get more gentle and more gentle and gentler and gentle.
Uh-huh.
Gentle is not what it's about.
Right.
There are some things we do that are very quick
Yeah.
and very sudden and very
Uh-huh.
they're liquid. Certain kinds of things will never break them, and other things will definitely break them. And it doesn't have
Yeah.
to do with what we think. They're not glass.
Yeah.
They're not these delicate things. They're infinitely flexible. They're fluid. That might be the opposite of
Uh-huh.
fragile.
Yeah.
Um, but there are certain things, and you need to get
Totally.
comfortable with and know what those things are that break them and what things you can do short of that and
So
push that.
in your getting to know bubbles, I have one last question for you. What is your favorite bubble trick?
Yeah. You
Do you
know,
have a favorite?
I definitely have a favorite of the ones that are typically in my act
Uh-huh.
because there were those levels. Um, most of the shows that I do, I'm one of the acts in a variety show.
Mhm.
So they want me to keep it to 6 minutes or 12 minutes. I do shows at science centers where I'm on stage for an hour. I do
Mhm.
my act for 25 minutes. And then the rest of the time I'm on stage talking about the science, talking about the how to,
Mhm.
um, sometimes doing the same thing over again, this time with a variation or with an explanation.
Right.
And then there are these tricks that I only sometimes do.
Mhm.
Uh, and naturally, I'm not quite as good with those.
Mhm.
And the reason they're not in the show very often is because they're not reliable. They're really
Mhm.
out at the edge of my skill. And if it's a dry day, it's never going to happen. If
Right.
humidity is low, it's just not going to happen. Or it's not going to. I do want a star shape.
Mhm.
I'll blow two bubbles and then I'll put a ring of small ones around the waist between the two.
Mhm.
And normally I do that. I call it a carousel.
Right.
But in this case, I put a little bit larger bubbles usually around, so maybe 6 bubbles around it.
Mhm.
And then instead of inflating the center like I do in the carousel
Mhm.
and filling it with smoke like I often do or fog, I'll put 6 little, so there's 6 little ones around the
Right. Yeah.
waist. And then I'll put 6 little bubbles into these spaces. They need not to touch each other. They need not to, they really, a lot of people say, oh, you have a lot of breath control. It doesn't feel like that. It feels
Yeah.
natural. All the things
Uh-huh.
that, in this case, actually, yeah, if it's a little bit too big, it's going to touch one more bubble and it'll never be the thing I want it to be. So
Right.
it really is a kind of control. And
Uh-huh.
I'll put them really, and then I'll blow up the center of that. And then I'll turn and tilt it so that the audience can see it flat on.
All right.
And then it's it's a 6-pointed
That's
star.
amazing. I love that.
It is, but it takes so long to
Mhm.
build it that, and you have to look at it really from a very perspective. If it's like this, you don't see the star.
Oh,
I need to
right.
show you this. So for an audience, that means I've got to show it to these people on the left side. I got to show it to the people in the middle, and then I got to show it to the people on the right side. And it took so long to build it, and now it typically doesn't live long enough for me to show
Right.
everybody. And
Yeah.
if it doesn't, it takes a long time to build it. I'm going to do that again.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I usually only do it when I have a camera. If I
Yeah.
have video projection in the show, or if I'm
Mhm.
on a TV spot or now on the internet, I can build it and it'll last long enough that I can show it to the camera.
Yeah.
Everybody sees it right where it is. So I love doing that one when I get the chance to. I love doing the carousel bubble inside of a bubble spinning around.
Yeah.
Uh, One of the things I love about them is that they're difficult. I have
Mhm.
another one I used to do fairly regularly. I blow a clear bubble. I put a smoke bubble inside of it
Mhm.
with using a straw
Yeah.
so that I can measure its size, and I can blow it much bigger than usually the ones that if I just blow on the wall and they form inside.
Mhm.
I can blow a much bigger one inside, and then quickly leave the straw. Leave the bubble
Yeah.
inside. Take the straw. You got to be careful with that move.
Yeah.
If straw touches the outside bubble and the inside bubble in the same place, it'll become a
Right.
double. It'll flip out. It'll become a double.
Yeah.
But essentially, you're getting off of one and then through the other,
Uh-huh.
and then before that one in the middle reaches the bottom, it's got a little bit of weight. It's going to go down.
Mhm.
People think bubbles fly.
Right.
Nah, without any wind, they go down. But
Uh-huh.
it's got enough spin on it. It's not immediate. Uh, and so if I can go back in to the top, just the wand is up here, and
Mhm.
just below the wand, and above that inside bubble, that smoke-filled inside bubble, there's a little triangle, little gap. And if I suck air out of there, I can get that outside bubble to become smaller and smaller and smaller. Not too small because I'll be touching the straw. I'll be touching both of them at the
Right.
same time, and it'll all blip out. But if I can get it, if I get the two bubbles so close in size, then it can't reach the bottom. The bottom also has a little gap because usually the outside bubble has a drop
Yeah.
that's weighting the outside bubble down. So there's a little air gap at the bottom. The bubbles will only blip out at the bottom,
Right.
or because of that drop, they'll hit the
Mhm.
same wet spot to
Yeah.
get that puddle.
Right.
Or at the top, if they touch the wand, both of them
Uh-huh.
touch the same wet wand, or both of them touch the same.
Right.
But if not, if I then remove it's caught, it's touching, it's not touching on the sides.
Mhm.
When two bubbles, I do the love bubble, the two bubbles
Yeah.
bounce off of one another. They don't
That's my
actually touch.
favorite.
They don't, yeah, good. They don't actually touch. There's always a little gap between them. It's very, very close. If they touch, physics, they must minimize their area.
Mhm.
And so they can become, as in the case of the love bubble, the two bubbles, two spheres is a pretty efficient way of containing the total volume of that air. But if they
Right.
could, they would prefer to be one sphere. That's a more economic way, uses less
Yeah.
material. Or even a double bubble where they share a common wall. That's
Mhm.
not as perfect, but it's better. So that's what they're trying to be. And if it reaches the bottom and they actually touch, it'll be that. If they touch
Mhm.
the ones, it'll be that. It'll become a double bubble. And I'm
Yeah.
trying to keep them apart. And so if they're on the edge, it's just like with the love bubble, we
Mhm.
tapped them together and they didn't join until you do it correctly. A
Yeah.
little bit oomph, a little bit of a little move, a
Right.
little or a little, you know,
Yeah.
something else that love wants. Um,
Yeah.
you know, uh, s- so that's what we're really after
Yeah.
is get that thing suspended inside. It can't reach the bottom and it doesn't blip out, and I can hold it for its full, life, if you call
Yeah.
this. Um, because it's difficult. And otherwise, I love the tornado. That's the one that I regularly
Yeah.
do in my show. And it's a little different every time I do it.
Yeah.
If I
I
took
do really like the
longer,
tornado. Yeah.
if I spun it faster, if I spun it slower, if I did it longer, if I waited before, it makes the tornado a little bit different every time. And so
Excellent.
in the middle of a show, sometimes I'm just doing the act and I got the jokes and I'm sometimes not looking. I'm taking advantage of the fact that everybody's looking there so I can stare at some kid or some girl in the audience. I can just because they're not looking at me really. They're looking at the ball. I love those moments. So a lot of times I'm
Yeah.
really not completely and then I do this tornado and then oh God, they're just so gorgeous. And
Yeah.
sometimes I'll get lost and I'll have to oh, right, audience. Hi.
I love that so much.
Come back to them.
Yeah, totally. I definitely understand that. I get that with bubble wall and tornado.
Mm.
So I totally understand that. But thank you so much for doing this interview with me. You've been charming and wonderful, and you're fantastic. And do you have a website or anything where people can find you?
Sure, bubblemagic.com.
Bubblemagic.com. All right,
It's
fantastic.
out of date. I don't have a calendar that shows where I'm going to be performing next. And right now, I'm essentially not,
Of
until
course.
COVID backs off. I'm about to get my second shot pretty soon,
Oh,
and maybe
fantastic.
things will start getting more normal. But
Yeah.
people can go there and find me. They can send me email from there, and
Yeah. Yeah. But you're wonderful, and thank you so much for this. I
it's
really,
my
really
pleasure,
appreciate it.
Meadow.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I will see you soon on the next AOIBA chat.
You bet. You bet.
Yeah.
I'm looking
And
forward to that.
I'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.